In chapter 13, I think in the schedule I said we'd only do chapter 12, but chapter 13, we're just talking about emerging adulthood, 20 to 25-year-olds, 20 to 30-year-olds. So let's go ahead and tackle the whole mess, chapter 12 and chapter 13. So let's go ahead and get started. Emerging adulthood, that says chapter 9. It should say chapter 12. There we go. Okay. Good. Young adults are at the peak of their physical abilities. The heart, lungs, and other body organs have reached maturity and are at their strongest by the mid-20s. In fact, researchers use early adulthood as the baseline against which to measure declines in functioning during middle and late adulthood. Although signs of normal aging do appear between ages 20 and 45, any decline in physical functioning is likely to be so gradual that it goes unnoticed, especially between the ages of 20 and 45. As soon as you become sedentary, things start to go downhill faster. That's a warning, and that's a hint and a warning. Here I am, 75 years old. I was just at the gym. I was out lifting all the kids in the room, and there were some that were in their 20s. There were guys in their 30s and 40s, and I'll tell you what, I was just out lifting everybody. And the reason I was doing that is because I keep it up. I haven't stopped. I haven't become sedentary. As soon as you become sedentary, everything just starts to droop. So my plan is to stay physical. I lift twice a week. I walk just about every day when the weather's okay. Anyway, physical functioning. If you keep it up, you can keep doing it for a very, very long time. And it also protects your joints. A lot of times your knees will go out, your hips will go out. One of the reasons that it does that is because the muscles around them are getting weak. And if you can keep the muscles around them strong, then they will protect your joints. And there you go. At 75, I've got a little bit of arthritis in one knee. I don't have an ACL in my left knee, but that's not the one with the arthritis. It also I had 3 chunks of meniscus that needed to be cut out of my left knee. But like I said, I'm having no problem. And the reason I'm having no problem is because I stay active. I keep walking. So the muscles around my knees are strong, and they protect the joints. Once you become sedentary, your muscles atrophy, and then you got a problem. The joints start to go. Recent generations of adults have been getting taller and heavier, as well as maturing earlier than previous ones. We see this in our own families when we grow taller than our aunts, uncles, parents, and grandparents. These generational changes in height, weight, and maturation constitute a secular trend. A variety of factors have contributed to this trend, including better nutrition, healthier environmental conditions, and interbreeding of genetically dissimilar individuals, which produces hybrid vigor. Though many people reach their full height during adolescence, virtually all reach it by their mid-20s. Skeletal development is completed in the 20s as the process of ossification changes the cartilage to bone. Women tend to reach their maximum height and go through the ossification process earlier than men do, though considerable variability in cessation of growth occurs for both women and men. Both sexes achieve maximum bone mass by age 30. The combination of exercise and good nutrition while bone mass is developing produces a reservoir of bone and calcium that can alleviate the bone loss associated with aging in later stages of adulthood. And that's what I was just talking about. And what are we looking at here? This is a 7-year-old, and here's the same child at 12 or 13. So you can see the bone growth and the change of cartilage to bone. Both women and men experience weight increases during early adulthood as their bodies continue to fill out. Women's breasts and hips and men's shoulders and upper arms generally increase in size. For most people, the high activity level of adolescence gives way to a more sedentary routine. If they do not adjust their diets, they gain weight. Normal body changes during puberty result in a higher proportion of body fat in females than in males. The average body fat percentage for men is 20%, and for women is 28%. Now, the reality is if a woman doesn't maintain at least 10% body fat, then she will not ovulate. And the reason she won't ovulate is because she needs, her body thinks that she's starving, and it's not going to try to produce a child. It's not going to deplete her stores if she doesn't have enough. She doesn't have enough body fat to get her through the pregnancy. Strength continues to increase after full height is reached. The muscular system gains in strength throughout the 20s and peaks in the early 30s. The middle and late 20s are the prime time for doing hard physical labor or playing strenuous sports. After the peak comes a slow but steady decline in strength, so slow that it has little impact on most people until age 40 or 50. And I was just telling somebody, I'm lifting exactly the same amount that I was lifting 30 years ago. So it doesn't have to decline. This is with most people. I almost said normal people. This is with most people, and what most people do is they become sedentary as they get older. They get tired. They stop protecting their joints with their muscle mass, and well, then at that point it's pretty much all over with. Individuals who are strong are likely to remain strong compared to their cohort, but younger adults will have the edge in activities that rely on strength after the peak in their 30s. Most young adults will notice a change only under unusual circumstances. The declines of aging primarily affect our organ reserve, the extra capacity each body organ has for responding to particularly intense or prolonged effort, or unusually stressful events such as running for a bus. And there you go. Throughout adolescence, our prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning ahead, impulse control, intuition, and evaluating risk and reward, is pruned based on our experiences and becomes more myelinated. This pruning and myelination allow for activities within the prefrontal cortex and activity between the prefrontal cortex and other areas of the brain to occur more quickly and efficiently. This process of development in the prefrontal cortex is not complete until we enter our mid-20s. Prefrontal cortex development is being impacted by our experiences. Drug and alcohol use peak during emerging adulthood, which may forever change the functioning of this area. And we're not just talking about drugs and alcohol, we're talking about marijuana. Marijuana really changes your memory structure. So if you're smoking marijuana at a relatively young age, you really screwed up your memory. And potentially, if you continue to use marijuana into your emerging adulthood, you know, that's all I can say. It really messes up your brain. It can really mess up your brain. This is supposed to be. No, it's not right. The cardiovascular system undergoes a steady decline in functioning throughout the adult years. In healthy individuals free of cardiac disease, the major age-related cardiovascular change is a gradual decrease in maximum heart rate. resting and submaximal heart rate are relatively unchanged. The maximum heart rate at which the heart can beat during heavy exertion decreases after about 5 to 10 beats each decade following peak capacities in the 20s. The respiratory system enriches the blood with oxygen and rids it of carbon dioxide by exchanging air from outside the body with air inside. Because pollutants are so pervasive, it is hard for researchers to distinguish between normal aging of the lungs and respiratory system and aging due to damage caused by environmental factors such as smoking and air pollution. And this is really kind of interesting because these are healthy lungs. You can see how nice and pink they are. This is an individual that's a smoker. So you can see how dark it is. It's got all those tars in it. And this is a 14-year-old from a polluted city in India. India has some of the most polluted cities in the world. Delhi, Beijing in China is also a very polluted city. And for this reason, the people that live there have lungs that look like this instead of like this. This kid's only 14 years old, and you can see all the dead places in his lungs. Now, the reality is, if you live in Saley, Arizona, you're probably okay. If you live in Chinle, you're probably still okay. If you live in Los Angeles or Phoenix, okay, yeah, I don't know. There's an awful lot of cars driving around, and you may look more like this than like this. This is one of the reasons I can't understand why people want to live in cities. I live in the middle of a cornfield, and and I was just talking to a guy. He was trying to sell me timeshares in a Hilton hotel, something or other, and he's in Las Vegas, and he was trying to convince me that everybody wants to go to Las Vegas, and I told him I kind of like it in the middle of my cornfield. This is a lot better, and of course he grew up on a farm in Ohio. And I was asking him, what's the difference? And he said, well, sometimes it's hard to breathe around here, living in Las Vegas. Anyway, so these are healthy lungs. This is an individual in their 40s. This is a smoker in his 40s, and this is a 14-year-old kid from New Delhi. The senses vary in the degree of age-related changes during early adulthood. Visual acuity increases until the 20s and 30s and remains relatively constant to age 40 or 50. From about age 30, the eyes become progressively more farsighted as the lenses thicken and flatten. But most people usually do not notice changes in vision until middle adulthood, when they may need reading glasses for the first time. And I started using reading glasses at age 55. Hearing peaks at age 20, followed by a gradual loss, usually too small to be noticed by young adults. Taste and smell sensitivity remain constant during early adulthood, whereas sensitivity to touch continues to increase until about age 45. Okay, this is in Spanish. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's what you need right there. Okay. In focus. Correct focus is what it's saying. You can see the lenses being adjusted. It's accommodating. There you go. Oh, it's shooting it to the back. Many of the losses in functioning people suffer as they age may result from not from the normal aging process, but from secondary aging caused by illness, abnormality, genetic predisposition, exposure to unhealthy environments, or engaging in unhealthy or health-compromising behaviors. Health-compromising behaviors that lead to illness, such as smoking, can also lead to secondary aging. Because socioeconomic status determines the environment where one lives, works, and goes to school, it affects biological functions that in turn influence health status. This is New Delhi. As you can see, those kids have to wear masks. You can see how bad it is. This is pollution. People are breathing that every day. And when they do, their lungs start to look like this. So thank your lucky stars you live wherever you live. And hopefully you don't live in New Delhi. Ugly. It's the reason I live in the middle of a cornfield. College students more than twice as likely to show symptoms. College students are more than twice as likely to show symptoms of delayed sleep phase syndrome, sleeping longer on the weekends and holidays than through the week. This leads to poor academic and job performance. College students tend to accumulate a sleep debt that they try to recover during any downtime. Two-thirds of students report sleep problems. 1/4 report severe sleep disturbances such as insomnia. Eveningness versus morningness. Some emerging adults prefer early to bed and early to rise, while others have a more late to bed, late to rise pattern. These patterns tend to change with age due to growth hormones. That's really kind of interesting because my wife is likes to sleep in, and I get up early. So I go to bed late and get up early. No, that's not right. I do. I get up. I go to bed after she does. Anyway. Emerging adults are encouraged to maintain good sleep hygiene, wake up at the same time each day, get regular exercise, take late afternoon naps, limit caffeine intake, avoid excessive alcohol intake. Diet plays a major role in the development of cardiovascular disease and cancer. About 35 to 40% of cancers are believed to be diet related. For instance, alcohol, high sugar, high saturated fat, high red meat, low fiber, low antioxidant intake is associated with the development of colon, rectal, gastric, and breast cancers. High calorie intake is associated with obesity, high salt intake with hypertension and cardiovascular disease, and high fat and cholesterol intake with atherosclerosis, hardening and narrowing of the larger arteries due to the formation of plaques that reduce the flow of blood, and coronary heart disease. All of these negative health effects are under the control of the person making food choices. So you should make the best food choices you possibly can. I was just reading an article about the difference between, we got an idiot for running the CDC, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He thinks that we need to start eating more beef tallow. We need to start using animal fats rather than vegetable seed fats. No, he doesn't like corn oil. He doesn't like canola oil. He doesn't like soybean oil. He doesn't like safflower oil. He doesn't like any of the seed oils. He thinks they cause problems. And there are things that can happen, but the amount of polyunsaturated fats in animal fats is really high. So you got to be careful. You got to be smart about what you're doing, and don't listen to the idiot. My God, where in the world did he come from? He also doesn't think he thinks vaccines should that nobody should get vaccinated. He's an idiot. Just think of all the babies that whose lives were saved by being vaccinated against childhood illnesses, like the measles. Oh my God, we've got a measles epidemic exploding in West Texas and eastern New Mexico and southern and the Panhandle of Oklahoma. My goodness, how stupid. Many adults learned poor eating habits when they were children and adolescents and need to modify their diets to make them healthy. Our environments impact diet. People with low incomes who live near more fast food restaurants are more likely to eat fast food on a regular basis, though living near a grocery store is not related to higher consumption of fruits and vegetables. And Bosch's is not known for their wonderful fruits and vegetables. It is more expensive to eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean meat than less healthy options. Because of the environments and learned behaviors, lifelong dietary change is hard to induce. And you can see, what do we have here? Wendy's, Rally Burgers, they're really greasy. Subway, Popeye's Chicken, there's McDonald's, Rudy's something or other, and that's Carl's Jr., I think, or Hardee's. That's what it is. It's a Hardee's. My goodness, all on one strip. We don't know what that is. Physical activity is associated with maintaining physical health, cognitive health, and mental health. The positive effects of regular aerobic exercise are well documented and far reaching. Aerobic exercise such as jogging, bicycling, and swimming is high intensity, long duration, and high endurance activity. It is recommended that a healthy individual exercise at 70 to 85% of maximum heart rate nonstop for at least 20 to 30 minutes 3 times a week, or at a moderate level for at least 30 minutes 5 or more times per week. Moderate exercise will increase fitness and decrease the risk of early death for less fit individuals. And these are all aerobic exercises. So if you're in the psychology program or the public health program, Dr. Barber is a weightlifter. I'm a weightlifter and a walker. He does some really weird things. He runs up a hill. He runs up hills. And Dr. Russ, of course, does yoga. So all three of us are into this exercise stuff. And I'm 75 years old, and I've been doing this for a really long time. You know, and the life expectancy of a white guy in the United States right now is 75.32, I think. And I'm 75 and a half. So I've gone beyond my life expectancy. So if you want to go beyond your life expectancy, keep exercising. The primary benefit of exercise is to the cardiovascular system. Regular aerobic exercise counteracts the age-related decreases in cardiovascular functioning. People who exercise maintain higher levels of cardiac functioning and blood flow than those who do not. The heart can more efficiently supply blood to the other tissues of the body, and the respiratory, muscular, and nervous systems all benefit as well. The benefits do not stop there. Exercise improves endurance, it helps to optimize body weight, it builds or maintains muscle tone and strength, and increases flexibility. It reduces or controls hypertension and improves cholesterol levels. Exercise also improves mood and self-esteem and reduces stress. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 71% of the United States population is overweight or obese, including more than 42% of the population who are obese. More than 9.2% of adults in the United States are severely obese. Despite changes toward healthier diets, the percentage of overweight adults has been growing since 1960, particularly among the economically disadvantaged groups. Overall, rates of obesity are highest among blacks, Latinx, and white adults, respectively. And for some reason, your textbook did not capitalize the W in white, but it did capitalize the B in black. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just my own personal prejudice. I think we need to respect everybody. So there's really no reason not to capitalize white when it refers to white people or black when it refers to black people. I think we need to capitalize. We need to be respectful of everybody. We need to be nice to everybody, not just, I don't know. I'm not really sure how that works. And I don't know why they don't capitalize things. Emerging, and I have a degree in English. My bachelor's degree is in English. I know, what's wrong with this guy? Emerging adulthood is a period of peak physical functioning. VO2 peaks in the early 20s, Reaction, grip, strength, and bone density are at its peak. This is the time when the individual is the least susceptible to physical illness. Questionable lifestyle encourages poor nutrition, high stress, and lack of sleep. Let's all get drunk tonight. In your 20s, you're going to recover, but as you get older, you don't recover nearly as fast, or at all sometimes. I got a fly. Oops, he's gone. In the United States, car fatalities are highest between the ages of 16 to 24. This is due to inexperience. The most dangerous time for a driver is the year after they receive their license because they think they can drive, but they haven't enough experience yet. Risky driving behavior, speeding, driving under the influence, following too closely, not obeying traffic signs and signals, changing lanes erratically, pass at inopportune times, allowing too little time to merge, fail to yield for pedestrians. This is especially true of male drivers than female drivers. Nearly half of U.S. college students admit to having driven intoxicated in the past year. Young drivers are less likely to wear seatbelts. Drivers not wearing seatbelts are twice as likely to die, 3 times more likely to be injured. Duh. Socialization impacts the number of accidents. The more friends in the car, the more likely the driver will have an accident. Personality characteristics can promote high risk driving, sensation seeking, of course, and being overly aggressive. Reducing fatalities includes parental involvement in monitoring. Graduated driver licensing is also effective. Complete freedom is not awarded until the individual has a clean record for a number of years. And some states are going to that. I don't think Arizona is one of them. Rates of car fatalities by age. There you go. Peaks 21 to 24. Look at that. Wow. Young ladies, it's a little bit higher, but it's not as bad. And then when you get really, really old, look, there's where I am. I should be in accidents all the time. Among adults aged 18 to 24, smoking rates are 8%, but are much higher, 16.7%, for adults aged 25 to 44. Though these statistics seem quite promising for the current generation of young people, it is important to note that many youths are utilizing alternatives like smokeless tobacco, and electronic cigarettes, or e-cigarettes. 46% of high school seniors admit to using e-cigarettes. The use of e-cigarettes is particularly concerning because many people perceive them as being relatively harmless. Though rates of carcinogens and toxins in e-cigarettes are less than in traditional cigarettes, they are still more dangerous than not smoking at all because they contain carcinogens, heavy metals, and flavoring chemicals linked to lung disease. Smoking is responsible for more preventable illnesses and deaths than any other single health-compromising behavior. Smoking is associated with cancer of the lung, larynx, oral cavity, and esophagus. It is also a major risk factor for other cancers throughout the body. Smoking is also related to cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. Smoking increases the risk of emphysema, chronic bronchitis, peptic ulcers, cirrhosis of the liver, and respiratory disorders, and aggravates the symptoms of allergies, diabetes, and hypertension. In women, smoking increases the risk of osteoporosis and lowers the age of menopause. '21st birthday parties can be painful. Some people take their very first legal drink at 21 and may drink to excess. The day may pass in a haze of alcohol to be followed by a day of hangover. Drinking may not hold the same attraction after this since legal doesn't have the same titillation as illegal. It's more fun to be illegal. For most people, adulthood means accepting responsibilities that adults must face: marriage, raising a family, providing for the family through work. This is known as role transition, accepting the duties and responsibilities of an adult. Substance abuse peaks in the early 20s. Peak and decline is possibly explained by unstructured socializing. College-age students have more unstructured time, causing peak drinking. This also may be the first time the individual has had any time to themselves. Role transition causes decline in substance abuse. In other words, getting married. Marijuana use and binge drinking in emerging adulthood. There you go. As you can see, they go up and down together. About 63% of the people in the United States drink regularly. That's two out of every three, just about 2 out of every 3. Drinking in most industrialized countries has been declining over the past 2 decades because of the expense of alcohol and tougher drinking laws. As long as a person doesn't drink and drive, 2 glasses of wine or 1 beer makes them less likely to have a stroke. That's the good news, but there is bad news. So there's you guys need to understand that Europeans, there's a reason why Europeans drink so much, and the answer is because they contaminated their water by using their water supply as a sewer. So if you go to Germany, you go to France or England, you can't really drink the water, and it's been that way for centuries. So the only safe fluid that they could drink was anything with alcohol in it, because it tended to kill off all the bacteria and viruses. So Europeans are traditionally, they drink. They drink because they needed, they had to back in the day. You had to be someplace with a flowing mountain stream in order to be able to drink the water. Because if it was a river, then you never knew who downriver was using it as a toilet. And this was true when I was in Europe. We were stationed in Germany from 79 to 82, and they told us not to drink the water. It had TB in it, tuberculosis. So we didn't. We drank pop, and we drank pop. That's it. Anyway, so one of the things you need to remember, a lot of these 63% are Europeans, because that's the way they evolve. So they're a lot, they can handle their alcohol a little bit better. They're professionals. Genetically, they're professionals. Binge drinking is defined as consuming 5 or more drinks in a row. In most cases, drinking that much alcohol in a short period of time will get the individual quite drunk. Several antisocial behaviors are associated with binge drinking, including rape, assault, drunk driving, and domestic abuse. There you go. Isn't that cute? Look at this guy. It's always fun to pass out behind a toilet. And this guy broke his chair. Anyway. Night out with the gang, rounds of $1.99 shooter specials, self-experiment with the date rape drug Rohypnol, forgetting that you're pissed drunk laying spread eagle on the sidewalk in front of a bar and not in bed with your lover is priceless. 1 in 13 adults abuses alcohol or is an alcoholic. Alcohol dependence is a combination of several chemicals in the brain that causes the individual to crave alcohol. GABA inhibits impulsiveness, glutamate excites the nervous system, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, and opioid peptides. Long-term drinking can deplete or increase levels of these chemicals in the brain so that the individual craves the substance and passes out in the bathroom, or I had no idea how he got into that wheel well. And that's not the real Will. Anyway, he looks like he's there pretty tight. Heroin prescribed opioids and synthetic narcotics such as fentanyl have had increasing rates of abuse and unfortunately skyrocketing rates of overdoses and deaths over the last 20 years. In 2018, nearly 68,000 deaths were due to overdose, and a significant proportion of those deaths were among young adults. Research has shown that risk of addiction and overdose mortality for opioids is linked to poverty, lack of treatment facilities for opioid addiction, and the high rates of unemployment. Stress affects all the systems of the body. Hans Selye, in 1985, identified a pattern of physical response to stress that he called the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS syndrome. This pattern has 3 stages: alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. Confrontation with a stressor sets the stress response in motion. During the alarm stage, the body becomes mobilized to meet the threat. The sympathetic nervous system, which helps to control the heart, and the adrenal glands increase the production of hormones that brings on typical stress responses. Rapid heart rate, dilated pupils, shallow and quick breathing, and higher blood pressure all result from increased blood supply to heart, brain, liver, and peripheral muscles. During the resistance stage, the body mobilizes to cope with the stressor. The adrenal glands produce hormones that attempt to keep the stressor as localized as possible while still enabling the body to overcome it. If the energy of the system is depleted before the body has overcome the stressor, the exhaustion stage is reached and illness results. The syndrome appears to be irreversible and accumulates to constitute the signs of aging. Wear and tear on the system brought about by repeated or prolonged stressors depletes the body's resources and lays the groundwork for disease. Stress can have a direct effect on health by increasing wear and tear on the physiological system and producing physiological changes that lead to illness. Tight shoulders, trembling hands, and fatigue are all signs of stress that, if untreated, can lead to conditions such as headaches, psoriasis, ulcers, skin rashes, colitis, gastritis, chronic lower back pain, vertigo, dizzy spells, high blood pressure, and even heart attack. When we experience stress, our bodies release hormones that help us deal with acute, short-term stressors. Our bodies respond similarly to acute, prolonged stressors, and when we are exposed to stress hormones over long periods of time, they can reduce our ability to fight off illness, damage memory centers in our brains, and overwork our cardiovascular system. Stress. Societal stress is also related to illness. War, natural disasters, pandemics, as well as geographical mobility that disrupts social ties produces psychological distress. The term post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, describes the physical and psychological symptoms of a person who has been the victim of a highly stressful event, such as an assault, war or earthquake that lasts long after the event is over. And there was just an earthquake in Myanmar and China, and they still haven't counted the people that died. It happened just yesterday. Typical PTSD, they're saying hundreds have died. 7.7 on the Richter scale. Typical PTSD reactions include feelings of numbness, reliving aspects of the trauma, sleeping problems, difficulty in concentrating, and strong reactions to other stressful events. While we were stationed in Japan, we had earthquakes. We had probably an earthquake a week. Most of them weren't 7.7, but there was one that was 8.1. And because they had built their houses, they were earthquake proof. They were on rockers. So if there was an earthquake, it just kind of rocked the house. I'm moving my hand. It was funny too because we had two cats, and if there was going to be a earthquake, they would disappear. They would just run outside, get out of the house, and it was kind of interesting. But we got a lot of movement in our building. 8.1. That was the famous Kobe quake that killed thousands of people in Kobe, Japan. But we were way up north, farther up north. And it actually was closer to us than it was to Kobe. Well, it's not important. Of the many traumatic events, rape is the most likely to result in PTSD, other than combat. Even many years after the rape, psychological evaluations indicates the victims are significantly more likely than non-victims to suffer from major depression, eating disorders, alcohol abuse, and drug abuse. Victims report headaches, gastrointestinal disorders, and gynecological problems because adolescents and young adults between 12 and 34 years of age are at highest risk. Rape constitutes a major long-term health concern for young adults, especially young adult women. In the United States, women under the age of 35 fear rape more than they fear murder and limit their activities, such as by not going out alone at night to prevent it. Though most people believe stranger rape, a surprise attack by someone the victim does not know, is more common, it is not. About 78% of cases are acquaintance rape, where the attacker is a friend, a family member, or a romantic partner. The psychological impact of acquaintance rape can be far worse than those of stranger rape because the victim feels betrayed by someone she trusted and may doubt her ability to judge men wisely. Victims of sexual assault often feel doubly victimized because they're often blamed for their rape. They were wearing something revealing, they were consuming alcohol, they were sexually promiscuous, and so they are in part responsible for the crime. This narrative is not only false, but also further damaging to the victims of rape. Once upon a time, not very long ago, it was taboo to talk about sex. Sex was so feared that when Lucy was pregnant, this is in the 1950s, with little Ricky, the word pregnant could not be used on television. In the early sitcoms, when they showed the bedrooms of parents, they slept in twin beds, not a double bed. Even Rob and Laura Petrie, as you can see. There's Lucy and Ricky, and there's Laura and Rob. They're in separate beds. Yeah, that's going to happen. Sex is more accepted in today's society. In today's society, premarital sex is expected, non-marital sex is common, and casual sex is touted as perfectly acceptable behavior. The old double standard where males were allowed more sexual freedom than females is now passé. Masters and Johnson in 1966 watched and measured women's and men's physiological responses in more than 10,000 episodes. They found that while sexual excitement can come from many different sources, such as touch, smell, or fantasy, healthy individuals go through the same physiological process. Male and female sexual responses are much more similar than different. Masters and Johnson described 4 physiological stages in the human sexual response cycle: excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. Later, they added desire as at the beginning, so it's desire, excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. Feelings or thoughts that awaken sexual interest and desire begin the sexual cycle. Desire, which is mainly an emotional state, leads to excitement. In the excitement stage, both women and men experience the first signs of physiological arousal called vasocongestion. We're talking about blood. Vaso means vascularization. It means blood flow. and we start getting congestion, which means it's being stopped. When increased blood flow to the surface of the skin causes swelling of the pelvic region, a more rapid heartbeat, and erection. Erection, we're talking about the male penis. We're also talking about the pelvic region of the female. It will blood will start pooling in the area, and that's what's happening with the erection. Humans are primates, and primates do not have instruments of erection. All they have is vasocongestion. In other words, blood flow, and that's what causes the erection is blood flow. In other animals like dogs and cats and horses and rhinoceri, they have a bone that moves down into the penis to make it erect. It's called an os penis. But not humans, not primates, not gorillas or chimpanzees. We do not. That's the way it works. The excitement phase can be rapid or it can be slow. When the changes of the excitement stage reach a high state of arousal and then level off, the plateau stage has begun. Orgasm, the involuntary rhythmic contractions in the muscles of the pelvis, releases the buildup of muscular tension and vasocongestion. A man typically has only one orgasm, whereas a woman may have no orgasm, only one orgasm, or multiple orgasms. After orgasm, the body returns to its non-aroused state. During the resolution stage, men have a refractory period during which orgasm is impossible. Research has shown that sexual mores in the United States have changed a great deal. One study showed that of individuals born before 1910, 61% of men, but only 12% of women had had premarital sex. So who are they having sex with? They're having sex with prostitutes. This is in 1910. Don't get excited. By the 1980s, the ratio was almost even for males and females. But as the hippie generation ages, sexual attitudes of the older generation seems to be liberalizing. There are four basic forms of sexual orientation: heterosexual, attracted to members of the opposite sex; homosexual, attracted to members of the same sex; bisexual, attracted to members of both sexes; and asexuality, not especially attracted to anybody, whether they're male or female. Sexual orientation represents feelings and self-concept. They may or may not be expressed in behavior. While homosexuality has been around since the dawn of man, it was considered a mental illness until the DSM-3 50 years ago. Yet homosexuality has been acceptable in more countries than it has been rejected, and in one ancient Western society, ancient Greece, it was the accepted norm. Incidence of homosexuality seems to be about the same in all cultures. In the United States, about 2.8% of males and 1.4% of females identify themselves as homosexual. Homosexual encounters do not make someone gay. 5% of males and 4% of females report adult homosexual encounters in their lifetime. People in large cities report more homosexual encounters for males, 9%, but only 3% for women. Sexual orientation emerges for most people in early adolescence without any prior sexual experience. For this reason, psychologists do not consider sexual orientation a conscious choice that can be changed. Biology may play an important role in sexual orientation. Research shows looking at homosexuality and sibling connections, the closer the genetic connection, the more likely a similar orientation. Some research indicates that male homosexuality may run in families. One of the residual benefits of the sexual revolution has been acceptance of being single. 60% of women and 80% of men between 20 and 24 are not married. 5% of women and 4% of men never marry in their lifetimes. Reasons include freedom in movement and sexuality, fear of divorce, joy in being alone. Problems with sexual performance are not uncommon. A sexual dysfunction is an inability to function adequately in or enjoy sexual activities. Most couples have some sexual problems at some time in their relationship, but these are usually of temporary nature. Low sexual desire is a common complaint of both women and men. It can stem from a variety of physical causes. Androgen, the sex hormone associated with sex drive, deficiencies, either those caused natural or those caused by medication for non-sexual ailments, can lower sex drive in both sexes, as can a wide range of medical conditions. The majority of cases of low sexual desire are due to physiological factors, such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, testosterone, which is an androgen in the hypothalamus, seems to have the control the sex drive. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that actually controls testosterone. The more serotonin you have, the more controlled your testosterone is. And one of the side effects of SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, is a lowering of the libido. In other words, it lowers your sex drive. So whether it's a male or a female, it can lead to no desire to have sex. If a woman has never experienced an orgasm, she is considered to have primary orgasmic dysfunction. The causes of this problem are usually psychological rather than physiological. Learning that one's body is dirty or that masturbation and sex are bad can create guilt about sexual feelings, leading to dysfunction. A religious upbringing that is extremely negative about sex can have an adverse impact on a woman's orgasmic functioning. Sexual responsiveness requires shedding inhibitions, which is relatively difficult if the inhibitions are strong and deeply ingrained. The most common male sexual dysfunction, premature ejaculation, exists when a man reaches orgasm with minimal sexual stimulation before, during, or right after sexual penetration. The causes typically are psychological rather than physiological. Men are considered to have erectile dysfunction when they are unable to get or keep a firm enough erection to have intercourse. Between 5 and 20% of men experience erectile dysfunction, and it is very prevalent among men with cardiovascular problems. For those who experience chronic erectile dysfunction, pharmacological therapies such as Viagra, sildenafil, and Cialis, tadalafil, are available. Male and female erectile problems may have physical causes such as alcohol or drug abuse, diabetes, vascular disease, side effects from medications for medical problems, notably high blood pressure, or severe chronic illnesses play a role in about half the cases. Psychosocial factors contribute to the other half. Depression is a common psychological cause. Current difficulties in a relationship may set off the problem. In many cases, couples are treated together in sex therapy. Infertility refers to a couple's inability to conceive a pregnancy after 1 year of sexual relations without contraception. In a nationally representative survey of women aged 15 to 44, 6% reported being unable to conceive a pregnancy after 1 year of trying. And over 7 million report having an infertility consultation at some time in their lives. Many couples who face infertility eventually do conceive, with nearly 2% of all births each year being due to assisted reproductive technology, but success rates among those getting medical assistance in conception vary with age, with 40% of those 34 and younger eventually conceiving, to a success rate of about 2% among women aged 44 and up. The two major causes of female infertility are failure to ovulate and blockage of the fallopian tubes, though uterine problems such as fibroids may also inhibit pregnancy. Ovulatory problems may be treated with drugs that induce ovulation. Blocked fallopian tubes may be due to scarring after a pelvic infection associated with a sexually transmitted infection such as gonorrhea or chlamydia, or by endometriosis, a condition in which the tissue lining the uterine cavity grows outside of the uterus into the other pelvic and abdominal organs. Treatment for blocked fallopian tubes usually entails corrective surgery, which is a minimally invasive outpatient procedure. My second wife had this after she was not my when she was not my second wife anymore, and she had a blockage in her fallopian tubes, and this is what this A and C are pointing to. These are blockages. In her case, her fallopian tubes had adhesed to her colon and had put an unnatural bend in the fallopian tube. And because of that, it pinched off the fallopian tube. So she was ovulating, but the ova were not able to go past the ovaries because the fallopian tube was pinched off. Now, luckily, the sperm couldn't get in there either, because if the sperm could have gotten in there, it would have caused an ectopic pregnancy. And eventually, she had the surgery, and it repaired it, but she said she had 3 ectopic pregnancies, but I don't. Evidently, they got one before it blew out the fallopian tube. Anyway. Eventually, she had a set of twins, and one just got married, and the other is about to get married uh, in a month, I think. Anyway, not important. Male infertility may be due to a low sperm count, low sperm mobility, poor semen quality, a high percentage of abnormal or immature sperm, or blockage of the ducts of the reproductive tract. Now, what causes a high percentage of abnormal or immature sperm? Sadly, one of the causes is marijuana. It causes abnormal forms. We knew this way, way back. I used to do sperm counts. I was a lab tech when I was in the service, and we used to do sperm counts a lot, too many. One reason we were doing so many sperm counts is because the pilots were having problems conceiving, and the reason they were having problems was mostly because they were pulling too many G's. But we also were looking at sperm counts from other individuals that weren't pulling so many G's, and one of the causes that we discovered was the fact that there were so many abnormal forms if the guy was smoking pot. Now I understand that smoking pot is not it's not you can't really use that as a birth control method, but yeah, these guys were it was kind of a mess. Surgery can correct blockage of the ducts of the reproductive tract. Most male infertility cases are managed with intrauterine insemination or in vitro fertilization. In other words, they take their sperm, they spin down the sperm. They can actually separate the male from the female because the male's heavier. He tends to have a larger head on him, and they go to the bottom, and the females are just above them. So they can usually pick out, if they want to have a boy baby, they just pick it out from the bottom. If they want to have a female offspring, they pick it up from the top. There are 5 distinctive characteristics of emerging adulthood. Age of identity explorations, explore various possibilities of work and love. Age of instability, exploration leads to instability. Self-focused age, learning to be more self-sufficient before committing. Age of feeling in between, feeling of being in transition. And age of possibilities, potential for dramatic changes. Explore so the age of identity explorations, explore various possibilities of work and love. In the 1960s, median age of marriage in most developed countries was in the low 20s, 21 for women and 23 for men. In the United States today, the average age of marriage is 27. In all other developed countries, the average age of marriage is 30. The only they're having problems with getting women to have babies in Asian countries, not in China and not in India, but in South Korea and in Japan. One study found that 30%, no, that's not right. 25% of 30-year-olds in Japan, this is both males and females, were still virgins. They had never had sex. Now you may think that that's a little strange. It is a little strange, but that's just the way it works. And anyway, they have different sexual mores than we have in the United States. This delay to marriage is due to four revolutionary changes: technology revolution, sexual revolution, the women's movement, and the youth movement. As emerging adults explore different possibilities in love and work, the rest of their life tends to be in flux as well. They tend to move from one residence to the other, seeking to find where they belong. They move out of their parents' abode for the first time and taste freedom. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Rate of residential changes in the past, and there you go. So right there, 18 to 29, that's when most people are changing residence. 20-somethings may move to college after graduation and in with a romantic partner, around the country or the world to study or work. Almost half of Americans, emerging adults, move back in with their parents at least once before they find permanent residence. Emerging adulthood is a time when individuals shift from reliance on their parents to their own life. These individuals must focus on themselves to develop the self-reliance to make this traumatic break from their old selves to their new selves. Individuals of this age are developing decision-making skills, knowledge, and self-understanding. Individuals of this age tend to be less egocentric than adolescents, but they are seeking self-sufficiency. Often these emerging adults feel like they are stuck in between, no longer an adolescent, but not yet an adult. And one of the things that we have discovered is that, yes, puberty is starting earlier, but it's actually lasting longer than it has in the past. In the old days, you grew up in 2 to 4 years. Now it's taking 4 to 6 years. Puberty is being elongated for some reason. Research indicates that these individuals often don't feel like adults until they are in their late 20s. Often they feel like they are approaching adulthood but haven't quite gotten there yet. Research shows that it isn't only emerging adults in the United States that feel that they are in between, but also in Argentina, in Israel, the Czech Republic, in China, and in Austria. They feel exactly the same. Emerging adults live in a world of expanding possibilities. Few of their dreams have been tested. Research shows that 89% believe that they will fulfill their dreams someday. If there is a problem in their life, such as negative family life, this is the time when they are on their own and can move beyond their past. In the 1950s, manufacturing in the United States was based on the hard commodities, but since then, manufacturing has changed to that of a service economy. Because of the increased need for knowledge of technology, education has been extended past high school, and this is, of course, known as tertiary education. Most people, the primary grades primary grades are elementary school, secondary education is junior high and high school, and the tertiary education is post-high school. Most people are delaying marriage thoughts or plans until they are done with their education. Thus, they are delaying marriage into their late 20s. The sexual revolution was sparked by the invention of the birth control pill in 1964. Because the fear of pregnancy was removed, sexual morality changed, and the sexual revolution was the result. Because intercourse could be engaged without fear of pregnancy, people took longer and longer to decide to marry. People used to marry right out of high school. Probably half of my class married right out of high school. Now, most young adults have a series of sexual relationships before getting married, and premarital sexual relationships enjoys widespread tolerance. The women's movement morphed out of the civil rights and peace movements of the 1950s through the 1970s. The movement expanded the opportunities for young women, giving them options beyond marriage and homemaking. Colleges that had low percentages of women in the 1950s and 60s began bursting at the seams with larger and larger percentages of women. Now, almost all occupations are open to women, and most colleges have between 65 and 70% of females rather than males. It's only 30 to 35% males, 65 to 70% female. One of the most interesting aspects of the 60s and 70s was the revolutionary youth movement that denigrated adulthood and exalted youth. In the 1950s, teenagers were eager to enter adulthood, so early marriage was very common. However, in today's world, adolescents and young adults see marriage and everything that comes with it, children and a home, as something to be avoided. These individuals are trying to delay such serious responsibilities as long as possible. Europe has has the longest emergent adulthood time. The average age of marriage and parenthood is around 30. Asians aren't considered adults until they are capable of supporting their parents financially. This may curtail identity exploration seen in European countries. Developing countries tend to be split between urban and rural. Urban young people are more likely to experience emerging adulthood. Rural young people have fewer opportunities for schooling and exploring. Researchers have determined that as people age, they develop the ability to use better and better judgment, and this is known as post-formal thought. Truth may vary from situation to situation. Solutions must be realistic to be reasonable. Ambiguity and contradiction are the rule rather than exception. Emotion and subjective factors usually play a role in thinking. Part of post-formal thought is the development of reflective judgment, or the ability to reason through dilemmas dealing with current affairs, religion, science, personal relationships, and other daily factors. Reflective judgment is not automatic and takes decades to develop. The first three stages in the reflective judgment model represent pre-reflective thought. In these stages, the individual does not perceive that their perception could possibly be inaccurate. These individuals have a hard time understanding that some problems do not have cut and dried answers. In stages 4 and 5, the individual acknowledges that not all situations have conditions that can be totally known. Solutions must be based on situations and evidence. Knowledge is seen as subjective. As the individual moves into stage 6 and 7, they realize that knowledge is constructed from evidence and argument after careful analysis of the problem or situation. Reflective judgment is only possible through continual reevaluation of beliefs and new evidence. Training beyond secondary school is called tertiary education. Around World War I, less than 10% of the population in any country obtained tertiary education. Until the 1970s, most of the people seeking tertiary education were men. Because of religious beliefs, women were considered cognitively and emotionally inferior to men. Tertiary education has become a normative experience with women outnumbering men. Now, in some countries that have extreme religious beliefs, like Pakistan and Afghanistan, women are not educated like they are in the United States and in Europe. And there you go. Worldwide enrollment of tertiary education, as you can see, Russia, Europe and Spain, the United States and Canada, parts of South America, Australia. North Africa. Not India, not Pakistan, not Afghanistan. This is Myanmar, or is that, no, it's Malaysia. It's Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Countries vary widely in how they structure tertiary education. Japan is relaxed and undemanding in university years. It is 4 years of sanctioned activities to think. After the highly competitive middle school and high school years, this will probably be the only time in their lives when they are encouraged to be leisurely. European colleges have no general education requirements. Traditionally, they study 6 years in a specific discipline only. Currently, the European colleges are changing to match U.S. patterns, where we do everything in 4-year cycles. And then we go into, we have general education, of course, as you all had to take gen eds. But in Europe, not so much. You just focus on one thing. U.S. Canada supports the first 2 years of general education for exploration. Many Americans will take 6 years to earn a 4-year degree, yet only 57% will finish their degree even in 6 years. Major reasons for the delay in finishing their education: they change majors, they add a minor, they take advantage of internships, they take advantage of studying abroad. Financial constraints: tuition has increased by a factor of 4 since 1982. Financial aid has shifted from grants to loans. Societies benefit from having an educated population because it allows for economic growth in a world economy. The individual benefits through higher earnings and occupational status, verbal and quantitative skills, oral and written communication, distinct identity, social confidence, increased self-concept, and psychological well-being. The college bonus showing economic benefits of tertiary education, and there you go. Whoa. For some, the job search is systematic and changing. For others, the job search is more meandering and without focus. After tertiary education, many struggle to find work that pays enough to live on. Without tertiary education, basic skills are needed to obtain employment. 6 basic skills are necessary for new jobs: reading at 9th grade level or higher, doing math at 9th grade level or higher, solving semi-structured problems, communicating orally and in writing, using a computer for word processing and other tasks, collaborating in diverse groups. Unemployment rates are twice as high for emerging adults as for adults beyond age 25. Unemployment for young adults and teens is especially high, as they are for minorities. Over half of the high school dropouts are unemployed. Manufacturing jobs have diminished. Urban decline also impacted a rise in unemployment. Self-esteem increases with emerging adults, while awkwardness of physical appearance declines because their appearance becomes more stable. Peer evaluation from high school are less likely as people get away from high school social milieu. Family relationships tend to improve. There is a greater degree of control over one's life. Identity versus identity confusion, according to Erikson: cliquishness and intolerance of differences, both hallmarks of the adolescent social scene, are defenses against identity confusion. Individuals need a stable identity before reaching intimacy, and this may explain prolonged cohabitation and less frequent marriages. Identity formation historically has been thought to occur in adolescence. However, emerging adulthood is the time period of importance for identity formation. The key areas to form identity are love, work, and ideology. 3 elements of identity development: assessing abilities and strengths, identifications that have accumulated by modeling, assess opportunities available to them in society. Marcia classified adolescence into one of four identity statuses: diffusion, moratorium, foreclosure, and achievement. Culture influences identity. Many cultures view the self as interdependent in relation to others rather than independent. Exploration to establish identity is not possible. In some cultures, where choices are limited by economy and strict traditions, work may be limited by economy. Marriage and dating may be limited by traditional parents and arranged marriages. Exploration of ideology occurs more in Western countries, whereas other cultures do not tolerate such independent thought. Globalization impacts development of bicultural identity, their local culture, and global and/or hybrid identity and culture. And that has to do with globalization. Identity is more complex if the individual is a member of an ethnic minority group. As adolescents move into adulthood, they become more and more aware about their ethnic identity. Minority adults are forced into a dual identity, their minority status and majority status: African American, French Canadian, Turkish Dutch. 4 ways of responding to ethnic awareness: assimilation, adopting the ways of the majority culture; marginality, rejecting both their own culture and that of the majority culture; separation, interacting only with your own ethnic group; and biculturalism, developing dual identity. Ideas about gender have become more egalitarian in the United States during the 21st century. However, gender stereotypes still exist, especially with regard to work. Women's work is more likely to be rated less favorable than men's, even by other women. Smith and Snell in 2010 found that among emerging adults, religious beliefs were stronger than behavior. 44% reported that belief was important in their lives. Religious doctrine is not as important as a belief in God. 75% reported believing in God. More tolerant of religious differences, religious beliefs related to higher well-being and lower high-risk behaviors. According to Smith and Snell, emerging adults tend to have a more individualized approach to religion. 4 major categories: agnostic atheist, 40% most are complacent through though there are some who are strongly anti-religious. Deists, 15% believe that there is something out there, but they don't have a specific religion. Liberal believers, 30% liberally accept and ignore that they want from their faith. And conservative believers, 15%, hold strong traditional beliefs. In the United States, participation in conventional politics is low. Voting is low. Involvement in political parties is low. Volunteer work and political demonstration is high. High involvement in political extremes. Increases in political extremes impacted by fewer social ties and obligations to other age periods. Increased involvement could be identity related. Wait a minute, my watch is messed up. There we go. In the United States, most children leave home about age 18 to 19 years of age. Common reasons for leaving: college cohabitation, independence. Increased quality of parental interaction occurs after leaving home. Now contact is voluntary. Ethnic minorities tend to stay at home longer. 40% of all emerging adults will return to the nest at least once. A trend that social scientists have been seeing in the last couple of decades is the young adults who graduates from college and moves back in with their parents before resolving Erikson's intimacy versus isolation dilemma. These individuals are referred to as thresholders or incompletely launched young adults. There are 4 patterns of young adults leaving home. In-time leavers left before turning 25, that's about 55%. The average male moves out at age 23. The average female moves out at 21. Still in the nesters are people who are actively trying to move out and will be out by 25. That's about 14%. Late leavers are still living at home at 25. That's about 20%. And returners are children that develop an independent life and then return to their birth home. That's about 11%. European emerging adults stay at home longer than in the United States. European emerging adults value mutual support of their family. It affords them a higher standard of living staying at home. Parental understanding increases in emerging adults. Intimacy grows in importance as people pass from adolescence to adulthood. Emerging adults have fewer friends, but those they do have, there is more self-disclosure, though fewer shared activities. There is increased time in unstructured activities. There is a decline in leisure activities as people age. Internet use is higher among emerging adults than any other group. Emerging adults spend an average of 3.5 hours a day on the internet. It's probably more now. This was a little dated. It's used for college work. A study in the UK found that the number of hours online negatively correlated with grades. Social networking, presentation issues can become controversial. Identity play can be common. Pornography, number one use of the internet is pornography. In a study of college students, 87% of the males and 31% of the females reported viewing internet pornography. Mobile phones, social networking and communicating with friends, text messaging, increasing use for staying in contact with family and friends. And that's it. So I'll talk to you again next week before I lose my voice.